The message appeared on every screen across Earth simultaneously. No hacking, no digital intrusion. It simply manifested, bypassing all security protocols as if they were non-existent. For 3 minutes and 27 seconds, humanity collectively held its breath. "We come in peace and recognition." The message began in perfect English, then cycled through all human languages. The Galactic Confederation extends greetings to the developing world of Sol 3. In the American Aerospace Command Center, General Peter Clark stared at the screen, coffee forgotten in his hand. "Confirm this is global," he ordered, his voice steady despite the historical weight of the moment. "Confirmed, sir. Same message worldwide. All channels, all devices, and origin." His communications officer swallowed hard. Approximately 400,000 kilometers from Earth, a vessel just appeared there. The following days brought organized chaos. World leaders formed an emergency response team. Scientists worked around the clock analyzing the alien vessel that now orbited the moon, and religious leaders called for calm, while privately questioning everything they'd ever taught. Dr. Susan Baker led the first human delegation. A renowned linguist with military training, she was the logical choice to head humanity's first official contact team. As their shuttle approached the alien vessel, a massive structure of impossible geometries that seemed to shift when viewed directly, Susan rehearsed the carefully crafted greeting message. The alien ship engulfed them without docking procedures, pulling their shuttle into a cavernous bay that materialized from nowhere. Gravity remained Earth normal. The air, when they tested it, was perfectly breathable. "They'd done their homework," muttered Jack Reynolds, the team's xenobiologist. "This environment is precisely calibrated for humans." Susan nodded. "Let's not keep our hosts waiting." The delegation was met by 3 distinct alien species. The tallest stood nearly 3 meters, with silvery skin that reflected light like polished metal. The smallest floated at eye level, a gelatinous orb containing swirling colors. But it was the 3rd species that commanded attention, crystalline beings that moved with liquid grace despite their seemingly rigid structure. "I am Coordinator Vex," the crystalline being communicated directly into their minds. "Speaker for the Galactic Confederation. These are Observer Trell and Witness Yulan." The alien gestured to its companions. "We represent the youngest member species of the Confederation." The older members, a pause. They preferred not to attend. Susan stepped forward. "We're honored to meet you all. I'm Dr. Susan Baker, representing Earth." "We know who you are." "Susan Baker of Earth," Vex replied. "We have studied your world for some time." The meeting progressed smoothly until Jack asked the question they'd all been wondering. "Your message mentioned a galactic confederation. How many species are members?" "Currently, 67 spacefaring civilizations participate," Vex answered, "though not all attend council." "And why did the older members choose not to meet us?" Susan asked. The temperature seemed to drop several degrees. The gelatinous Yulan shrank noticeably. "The Vedrani, what you might call the founding species of our confederation, have observed your world for millions of years." Vex's mental voice grew softer. "They and the other ancient ones have concerns." "Concerns?" Susan pressed. "About humans?" "Not exactly." Vex's crystalline form shimmered with what might have been discomfort. "About Earth itself. Your world bears markers in the galactic archives. Warnings, left by species so ancient even the Vedrani consider them legends." Jack leaned forward. "What kind of warnings?" "That is something we are not authorized to discuss at this stage of contact," Vex replied firmly. "But know this, your species has developed in isolation not by accident, but by design. The quarantine around your solar system has been maintained for 12 million years." Susan felt a chill run down her spine. "You're saying someone has been keeping other aliens away from Earth for our protection." For the first time, the silver-skinned Trell spoke, its voice like wind through metal pipes. "Not for your protection, human. For ours." The Earth delegation returned home with more questions than answers. Their brief encounter with the Galactic Confederation representatives left global leaders unsettled. What exactly made Earth so dangerous that ancient spacefaring species maintained a 12-million-year quarantine? Susan Baker sat alone in her office at the newly established Extraterrestrial Relations Department, reviewing her notes for the 100th time. The aliens' cryptic warnings haunted her. Outside her window, protesters gathered daily, some welcoming the alien presence, others demanding they leave Earth space immediately. "You should get some sleep," said a voice from her doorway. Susan looked up to see Kyle Martins, the department's chief security officer. His concerned expression told her how exhausted she must look. "I can't," she admitted. "Something about this whole situation feels wrong." The Vedrani. These ancient crystalline aliens, they're absolutely terrified of Earth, Kyle. Not humans specifically, but Earth itself. Kyle leaned against the doorframe. Maybe it's just standard procedure for them. Quarantine developing worlds until they reach a certain milestone. That's not it. Susan shook her head. Coordinator Vex mentioned markers in the galactic archives. Warnings left by species so ancient that even the Vedrani consider them legends. Before Kyle could respond, Susan's secure communication panel lit up. "Message from Lunar Base 1, the automated system announced." Susan activated the screen to see the worried face of Dr. Neil Parker, head of Earth's first permanent lunar settlement. "Susan, we got a situation," Neil said without preamble. "The aliens just delivered something to us. Well, I'm not entirely sure what it is. They're calling it a history crystal and insist you personally examine it." "Why me?" Susan asked. "They specifically asked for the human called Baker," Neil replied. "Said you've been marked as receptive, whatever that means." Within 12 hours, Susan found herself at Lunar Base 1, staring at a 12-sided crystal that glowed with an inner blue light. It sat in a specialized containment unit that the aliens had provided, claiming it was for mental safety. "They were very specific about the handling procedures," Neil explained. "No one touches it directly. The case creates some kind of mental buffer that prevents. They called it temporal echo feedback." "Have you tried scanning it?" Susan asked. "Nothing works on it. X-rays, magnetic resonance, sonic imaging, they all just bounce off. It's like the laws of physics bend around it." Susan studied the crystal carefully. "Did they explain how I'm supposed to access its contents?" "They said you'd know when you were ready." Neil shrugged apologetically. "Not very helpful, I know." That night, alone in her quarters, Susan dreamed of stars. Ancient constellations viewed from an Earth that looked nothing like the planet she knew. Mountains stood where oceans should be, and strange creatures moved across landscapes untouched by humans. She woke with a start, her heart racing. Without thinking, she pulled on a robe and made her way to the secure lab where the crystal was kept. The guards nodded her through after verifying her identity. Inside, the crystal pulsed as if responding to her presence. "You're trying to tell me something, aren't you?" Susan whispered, approaching the containment unit. As she placed her hand on the transparent barrier, the crystal flared brilliantly. Susan gasped as images flooded her mind, not like a dream, but like memories she never knew she had. She saw beings of pure energy walking the primordial Earth, watched as they seeded the oceans with life forms unlike anything in Earth's fossil record, witnessed their experiments as they manipulated DNA, creating and destroying species at will. Most disturbing were the flashes of other alien visitors arriving millions of years later, finding something on Earth that terrified them so completely they established the quarantine. When the guards found Susan hours later, she was unconscious on the floor. As they rushed her to medical, the crystal had returned to its dormant state. But in Susan's mind, a message now burned like fire. The sleepers must not wake. Susan Baker awoke in the medical bay 3 days after her encounter with the crystal. The doctors found nothing physically wrong with her, yet her brain scans showed unusual activity in regions typically dormant in humans. "How are you feeling?" asked Dr. Olivia Reed, the base's chief medical officer, as she checked Susan's vitals. Like I'd lived 1,000 lifetimes, Susan replied, her voice hoarse. I need to speak with Earth Command immediately. Within hours, a secure conference was arranged. World leaders and top scientists gathered virtually as Susan detailed her experience. The crystal contained memories, she explained. Not data, not recordings, actual memories from beings that lived on Earth over 15 million years ago. Greg Wilson, the UN Secretary General, leaned forward on his screen. What kind of beings are we talking about, Dr. Baker? They called themselves the primordials. They evolved on Earth before any of our current species. They were powerful. They could manipulate matter and energy at will. That's impossible, interrupted Dr. Paul Johnson, Earth's leading paleontologist. We have a complete fossil record. No, we don't. Susan cut in. The primordials didn't leave fossils because they could control their molecular structure, and they deliberately erased evidence of their existence before they left Earth. Left Earth? Why would they leave? Asked Laura Green, the American president. Susan closed her eyes, recalling the crystal's memories. They were running from something they created that turned against them. The last primordials escaped Earth approximately 12 million years ago, but before leaving, they placed something in suspended animation deep beneath Earth's surface. The revelation sent shockwaves through Earth's scientific and political establishments. Within a week, an international research team was formed to investigate Susan's claims. They named it Project Prometheus, those who sought forbidden knowledge. The team assembled at Lunar Base 1 included top experts from every relevant field. Dr. Ben Foster, quantum physicist, Dr. Amanda Clark, molecular biologist, Dr. Joe Rivera, geologist, and a dozen others, including Susan herself. The crystal showed me locations, Susan told the team during their first meeting. Places where the primordials built structures that should still exist. After 15 million years, Joe asked skeptically, plate tectonics alone would have. These structures were designed to last, Susan insisted. They're made of materials that don't exist in our periodic table, and the primary complex is here. She pointed to a map of Antarctica. 3 weeks later, the Prometheus team arrived at the coordinates Susan had provided. Initial ground-penetrating radar revealed nothing unusual, but when they switched to the frequency Susan suggested, one she remembered from the crystal, the results were startling. My God, whispered Amanda as the images clarified on their screens. That's not natural. 2 kilometers beneath the ice lay a geometric structure spanning at least 5 square kilometers. Perfect angles and symmetrical patterns that nature simply doesn't create. How do we reach it? Ben asked, calculating the immense challenge of drilling through 2 kilometers of Antarctic ice. As if in answer, the Galactic Confederation vessel that had remained in Earth orbit suddenly appeared in the sky above them. A smaller craft detached and descended to the ice. Coordinator Vex emerged, along with 2 new aliens, tall, spindly beings with 6 limbs and eyes that seemed to see in all directions at once. These are monitors Leth and Sarn, Vex explained. The Vedreni Council sent them when they detected your expedition. Are they here to stop us? Amanda asked warily. No, Vex replied. They are here to witness. What you have discovered cannot remain buried forever. And the Vedreni prefer that if someone must awaken what lies below, it should be your kind. Monitor Leth stepped forward, its voice translating through a device on its chest. We will assist you in reaching the chamber. But understand this, what sleeps below was not meant to be disturbed. The primordials feared it enough to flee their homeworld and warn the galaxy. Susan felt a chill that had nothing to do with the Antarctic cold. What exactly are we going to find down there? Leth's many eyes blinked in unison. The reason the oldest aliens won't go near Earth. The alien technology cut through Antarctic ice like it was warm butter. What would have taken human drilling teams months happened in hours. By nightfall, they had created a perfect circular shaft 2 kilometers deep, ending directly above the mysterious structure. The passage is stabilized, Monitor Leth announced, its six-limbed form moving with surprising grace despite the cold. The molecular bonding will prevent collapse for approximately 30 of your days. Susan Baker stared down the illuminated shaft. Despite her memories from the crystal, fear gripped her. Who's going down first? I believe that honor should be yours, said Dr. Ben Foster, adjusting his specialized environmental suit. You're the one who led us here. The descent took 20 minutes in the alien-designed elevator platform. Susan, Ben, Amanda Clark, and Joe Rivera formed the initial exploration team, with Monitor Leth accompanying them. The others would follow once they confirmed it was safe. The elevator stopped at the bottom of the shaft, opening into darkness that seemed to swallow their lights. The air was stale but breathable, somehow preserved for millions of years. Impossible, Joe whispered, running his hand along a perfectly smooth wall. The composition doesn't match any material on Earth. It's not from Earth, Monitor Leth explained, its translator creating a slight echo. The primordials harvested materials from across your solar system. Their lights revealed a vast chamber with ceilings that stretched at least 30 meters high. The walls were covered in symbols that shifted and changed when viewed directly, as if alive. It's some kind of script, Susan said, approaching one wall. I recognize it from the crystal memories. Don't touch anything, Leth warned, but it was too late. As Susan's fingers brushed against the symbols, they flared with blue light. The illumination spread across the walls like flowing water, bringing the entire chamber to life. The floor beneath them hummed with awakening energy. What did you do? Ben asked, backing away as the light intensified. I didn't mean to. Susan began, but stopped when the center of the floor began to open. A platform rose from below, carrying what appeared to be 7 large, oval pods arranged in a circle. Each was made of the same shifting material as the walls, but transparent enough to see what lay inside. Amanda approached the nearest pod cautiously. They're stasis chambers, preservation units. Are they occupied? Joe asked, keeping his distance. Amanda peered closer, then stumbled back with a gasp. Yes, there's something inside. The team gathered around the pod, their lights revealing a form unlike anything they'd ever seen. It appeared both solid and liquid simultaneously, its body constantly shifting like mercury, but maintaining a vaguely humanoid shape with elongated limbs. What is it? Ben asked, looking to Monitor Leth. The alien's many eyes had widened in what could only be described as terror. A primordial descendant, one of the last generation. I thought the primordials left Earth, Susan said, confused. The true primordials did, Leth explained, backing toward the elevator. But their final experiments, their attempts to create perfect versions of themselves, were too dangerous to take, too unstable. They left them here in suspended animation, thinking they would never wake. Joe moved to examine another pod. This one's empty. And this one too. A quick check revealed that of the 7 pods, only 3 still contained occupants. The others showed signs of having been opened from the inside. That's impossible, Leth whispered, its translator struggling to convey the emotion in its voice. The security protocols were designed to last 10 million years, came a new voice from the shadows beyond their lights. They began failing 2 million years ago. The team turned toward the sound, raising their lights to reveal a figure standing in an archway they hadn't noticed before. It appeared human, a woman with dark hair and eyes that reflected their lights like mirrors. Welcome, siblings, the figure said with a smile that didn't reach those reflective eyes. We've been waiting a very long time for you to find us. Monitor Leth backed against the wall, all 6 limbs trembling. The sleepers are awake. This is why the oldest aliens won't go near Earth. Don't be afraid, the woman said, stepping into the light. Her movements were too fluid, like watching water flow in human shape. My name is Eve. At least, that's what I've chosen to call myself. Monitor Leth positioned itself behind the humans. It's manipulating its molecular structure to appear human. Don't trust what you see. Eve smiled. The monitor speaks truth. This form is merely comfortable for our conversation. She turned to Susan. You touched the memory crystal. You've seen what we once were. Susan nodded slowly. The primordials. You're there. Children. Creations, Eve corrected. The final generation. Designed to be perfect, but our makers grew afraid of their own success. Her gaze shifted to the occupied stasis chambers. My siblings remain as they were left. I woke early. The others who escaped have scattered. Escaped to where? Amanda asked, her scientific curiosity overcoming her fear. Among you, Eve replied simply. We learned to hide, to blend. Some took human form completely, forgetting what they were. Ben stepped forward. That's not possible. We would have detected genetic anomalies. Would you? Eve interrupted. When you don't even understand your own genetic code. Humans use maybe 2% of their DNA. The rest you call junk DNA because you don't understand its purpose. Susan felt a chill run through her body. What are you saying? I'm saying, Eve continued, that the primordials never truly left Earth. They encoded themselves into the evolving life forms. Insurance in case their escape failed. Dormant genetic memory, waiting for the right conditions to reawaken. Joe shook his head in disbelief. That's why the aliens quarantined Earth. They knew the primordials had hidden themselves in our DNA. Not exactly, Eve said. The Vedrani and other ancient races discovered what happened after the primordials fled. They found this facility with its warning message. They established the quarantine because they feared what you might become when the dormant code activates. Monitor Leth spoke up. The awakening protocol. It's beginning now. That's why we finally made contact with humanity. Susan turned to the alien. You knew about this. Is that why you helped us find this place? The Vedrani Council debated for centuries. Leth admitted. Some wanted to sterilize Earth completely. Others argued that evolution had changed the threat. In the end, they decided observation was the safest course. Until your species developed atomic energy, Eve added. That was the first trigger. Then digital technology, quantum computing, genetic engineering, each advancement activating more dormant code. What happens when all the code activates? Amanda asked. Eve's form shimmered slightly, her human appearance briefly dissolving into something more fluid before stabilizing again. Transformation. The primordials designed humans as vessels for their eventual rebirth. Susan remembered fragments from the crystal memories. Experiments on early mammals, genetic manipulation spanning millions of years. You're saying humans are just containers. That we were engineered to eventually become primordials. Not containers, Eve corrected. Cocoons. The transformation preserves your consciousness, your humanity. But it adds more. Ben moved closer to the stasis chambers. Is that what happened to you? You were human once. I was never human, Eve said. I awakened from stasis when your ancestors were still learning to use fire. But I've watched humanity grow, guided your development when necessary. She's lying, Leth interjected. The predecessors' warnings were clear. The primordial descendants seek to remake all life in their image. If the protocol fully activates in humans, you will become like them, unstable, dangerous, beyond control. Eve's expression hardened. The Vedrani fear what they don't understand, what they cannot control. Susan felt a strange sensation building within her, like memories trying to surface, but not her own. The crystal, it's doing something to me, isn't it? Not doing, Eve said gently, reminding, awakening what was always there. She extended her hand toward Susan. Would you like to remember who you really are? Susan stared at Eve's outstretched hand, feeling drawn to it despite Monitor Leth's frantic warnings. The connection to the crystal memories had changed something inside her, awakened something dormant. Don't touch her, Ben shouted, lunging forward to pull Susan back. As his hand made contact with Susan's arm, Both humans gasped. A visible pulse of energy, like static electricity, but blue-tinged, arced between them. Interesting, Eve said, lowering her hand. The protocol is further along than I realized. You're already becoming receptive to each other. Ben backed away, staring at his palm. What was that? Neural synchronization, Eve explained. The first stage of the awakening. Monitor Leth was now frantically communicating with someone via a device on its arm. This facility must be sealed immediately. The contamination is spreading. It's not contamination, Eve countered calmly. It's evolution. The next step for humanity. Joe and Amanda had moved to opposite sides of the chamber, examining the walls covered in shifting symbols. These aren't just decorative, Amanda called out. They're moving in patterns, like code or equations. They're instructions, Susan said, not knowing how she knew. The complete sequence of the awakening protocol. A roadmap for human transformation. Eve smiled approvingly. Very good. The primordials left nothing to chance. Even if their descendants in stasis never woke, the protocol would eventually activate in the species they engineered to carry their legacy. That's us, Joe said, his voice hollow with realization. Humans were created as a backup plan. Not created, Eve corrected. Guided. Your evolution was natural, but with assistance at key junctures. The primordials saw potential in your mammalian ancestors when their own physical forms were failing. Monitor Leth had finished its communication and now stood rigidly by the elevator. The Vedrani Council has made its decision. This facility will be collapsed with all of us inside it. The sacrifice is necessary to prevent global activation of the protocol. They can't do that, Amanda protested. There are billions of innocent people on Earth. They'd done it before, Eve said darkly. Ask your alien friend about the Centauri system, or the Draconis Purge. The Vedrani solution to threats they don't understand has always been elimination. Susan felt something new stirring in her mind, not just memories now, but understanding. The symbols on the walls suddenly made perfect sense, like reading her native language. The protocol isn't a threat, it's a gift. Susan then approached her cautiously. What are you seeing? Everything, she whispered. The primordials weren't running from some external enemy. They were evolving beyond physical form. The protocol isn't about remaking humans into primordials. It's about guiding us to the same evolutionary leap they made. Eve's human appearance flickered again, momentarily revealing a luminous form beneath. Almost correct. The primordials faced extinction because their physical evolution outpaced their ethical development. They created us, their descendants, as an experiment. Could beings who evolved naturally, who understood struggle and cooperation, handle the power that destroyed our makers? And the quarantine? Joe asked. Protection, Eve replied. Time for humanity to develop the compassion and wisdom the original primordials lacked. The oldest aliens fear Earth because they know what's coming. A new species with powers like the primordials, but with human empathy and ethics. The facility suddenly trembled around them. Dust fell from the ceiling as a deep rumbling sound grew. They've started the collapse sequence, Leth announced. In 10 minutes, this entire structure will implode, taking everything within 5 kilometers with it. We need to get out of here, Amanda said, moving toward the elevator. It's too late, Leth replied. No technologies can escape the collapse field once initiated. Susan moved to the center of the chamber, standing among the stasis pods. The symbols on the walls were now glowing intensely, flowing like rivers of light toward her. There is another way. If I complete the initial sequence of the protocol here, now I can create a shield. Susan, no, Ben shouted. We don't know what will happen to you. She turned to him with eyes that now shimmered with the same light as the symbols. We were always meant to become more than we are. It's time to remember who we're supposed to be. The chamber trembled more violently as Susan raised her hands. The flowing symbols from the walls converged on her, wrapping her in streams of luminous code. Her body began to glow from within, skin becoming translucent as the energy of the protocol filter. "Susan," Ben cried out, trying to reach her but stopped by a field of energy that now surrounded the central platform. Eve watched with an expression almost like pride. She's accessing the full sequence. Remarkable for a first awakening. Monitor Leth backed against the wall, all 6 limbs trembling. This cannot happen. The consequences. The consequences. Susan's voice echoed strangely, as if coming from everywhere at once, are that humanity will choose its own destiny. The rumbling intensified. Chunks of ceiling began to fall around them, but they disintegrated into dust before reaching the floor. "We need to leave now," Amanda shouted over the noise. "The whole structure is coming down." Susan turned toward her friends, her form now barely human. A silhouette of light with Susan's features still visible within. "No one is going to die today." She raised her arms higher, and the collapsing chamber stopped. The falling debris hung suspended in midair. The rumbling ceased. "Impossible," Leth whispered. "She's countering a Vedrani collapse field. No technology can do that." "It's